This is Gabe Nodovic with my Week 5 presentation for MPA 594 Comprehensive Exam Seminar for California Baptist University. And this is about a government agency change, as the title says. So the agency and the change that I'm going to focus on for this is recently Seattle announced that their mayor is planning on cutting the funding of the police department by 18%, and they're going to take that money and invest at least $100 million into communities of color within and around the city. So obviously that's going to be a large change to remove 18% of the budget for the Seattle Police Department. So we'll focus on that. The three themes that I'm going to focus on here are the theme of communication, motivation, and efficiency, and how these relate to the change in the police department. For the first theme of communication, this is mostly going to focus on how the communication happens from leaders to their subordinates. So obviously, we've got Gulick, who talks about his POSCorp, and specifically with this theme of communication, the planning, organization, and directing of POSCorp are relevant here because this is where the leaders are going to implement their plan or come up with their plan and how to implement it, on how to cut the budget and where that cut is going to happen and how that's going to affect the department, which ties into the organization and the organizing of the department once the budget has been figured out, and directing, telling the officers, the department, the subordinates, that sort of thing about how this is all going to relate to their jobs. Fayol talks about in his 14 principles of management about orders, and if we tie that with Mary Parker Follett's idea of the giving of orders, subordinates don't want management to just tell them what to do. They kind of want to relate to them and not just give orders, but also work alongside them and show them how it's all going to work together. Weber, talking about his hierarchy, obviously you're not going to have the lowest level in a department just doing the change. It's going to come from the top down. And as Weber talks about, actually Merton also talks about how Weber was concerned with the bureaucratic structure and how it attains precision, reliability, and efficiency. And all of those tie in to how this change is going to need to be implemented and work together. And with the change coming from the mayor of Seattle, obviously this is an elected official. So with Wilson's dichotomy, this is an elected official working, kind of telling what the administrators are going to do and how they're going to basically say your budget's cut, kind of work with it. So the mayor is telling these officials who are appointed, not elected, just like Merton talks about, and how this relates to the Pendleton Act. It's not, these are people who, based on their merit, they're given these roles. They're not just buddy-buddy with the mayor, and therefore they're going to kind of change the department. Katz and Kahn talk about how it's this whole idea of equating the goals of the organization with the goals of the members. So in a police department, specifically Seattle, why they're making these changes, they need to, management needs to let the people know why these goals align with what the goals of the department as a whole should be, not just for the good of the budget. When we look at the theme of motivation in this scenario, obviously one of the motivations for anybody in any job is just job safety, security, and some people look to kind of climb the social ladder, or not the social ladder, but the bureaucratic ladder, I guess. And so just like Maslow's hierarchy, you need to find what these people's needs are when such a change is coming about. And I talked about it in a previous presentation, but some people, if you tell them department budget is going to be cut so drastically, they might kind of fear for their safety as far as just like job security, not necessarily their physical needs, but they could. But you also need to let them know if a department's cutting their budget that much, it can affect them negatively, because if they see that there's no advancement in the department, that can alter how they feel comfortable in the workplace. Coming back to Mary Parker Follett with her ideas of the reciprocal relationships and how management needs to kind of have the power with rather than power over people, motivating them, not just kind of telling them, but kind of working alongside of them. When McGregor talks about his theory X and theory Y employees and the human sides of enterprise, management needs to look at the people not necessarily as the theory X, but look that these people do want to do a good job. And like Downs talks about the zealots, in a situation like this, you need to find those zealots in the department and kind of help them to motivate other employees too, because employees have different relationships with other employees rather than just with their leaders. So if you find the zealots in the department, they're going to help bring about this whole change and motivate people. And Fayol's idea of the esprit de corps, you have people in different structures, different work environments who their life is kind of their job. They kind of put a lot of themselves into their job. So you need the management in this situation needs to let people know that they can still take pride in their work, even though things could be changing drastically. So the final theme for this one is efficiency. So in a change like this, we can use Lindblom's idea of muddling through in the branch and incremental ideas. It's not necessarily completely rewriting how a department or a police department is structured, but it's kind of just looking at those little branches, those little parts of the organization, how to change those, make cuts here and there instead of completely like chopping down the tree and planting a new one. So in Taylor's idea, it is the efficiency, but there's not necessarily just one best way in this situation to do that. So it's kind of anti-Taylor. It's more of because one of the things about Taylor is it, like Mary Parker Follett said, it tends to depersonalize management and an organization. And in this situation, you definitely don't want to depersonalize things. You want to let employees know what's going on and what, like, the reasoning for this. Because if going back to the scenario, they're cutting the budget to reinvest that money in other parts of the communities. So like Riddle and Weber talk about these wicked problems, they're taking this money not to necessarily punish the police department, but trying to look for ways to solve some of these wicked problems. And just like Riddle and Weber talk about, they could find out that this could be a horrible idea. It might not solve what they want it to do, so they could end up going back and increasing the budget later down the road. And Riddle and Weber really talk about this idea of kind of taking these wicked problems, and even Lindblom too. You take these problems and you kind of work with them, and you kind of see what works and what doesn't. And if something doesn't work, then you kind of have to go ahead and make those changes. So I think that's accurate here. And then two other theorists that I didn't really run across or remember running across before were Jeffrey Pressman and Aaron Wildavsky, however you pronounce it. They have an article about implementation. So again, the whole process here is they're cutting a budget, so finding out how to implement that. And Pressman says that the implementation can be viewed as a process of the interaction between the setting of goals and the actions geared towards achieving them. So it's not just that goals are set, because obviously the goals are kind of set by the mayor in this situation where he says we're cutting the budget by 18%. But the the police department in general kind of takes the actions that are geared towards achieving the goal of cutting that budget. So they're kind of figuring out how to work through, I guess, the loss of 18% of their budget and finding the efficient way of working through with that. So yeah, in conclusion, that is, again, it's a real thing that's happening right now in Seattle. I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do, how they're going to go about it, but with the focus on communication, motivation, and efficiency in this situation, and how management interacts with the employees, and basically how they get everybody to move forward, that's the most important part here. And as Forrest says, that's all I have to say about that. So have a good day. Thanks for watching.